Good evening. When I was asked by Patrick to come up with a title for this presentation, he said, God, that looks boring. So we're going to try and change that a little bit. And I need your help. I need you to put your drinks down, and I need you to stand up. And I need you to find a partner, because we're going to share an intimate moment. And as we know, intimate moments are quite fun in twos. If there's somebody without a partner, threes can be fun too. Okay, so raise your left hand in the air. Roll your sleeve back a little bit. Face your partner, or partners. Put your hand in front of you like this. Take the other hand and wave these fingers around. And gently, because this is the moment, take hold of your partner's wrist. It's in front of them. And feel around a bit. Can you feel anything? Feel anything there? Just the wrist, feel a little bit deeper. Because trust me, if your partner is still standing and you can't feel anything, they have a very interesting medical condition. Now, whilst you're sharing this intimate moment, I want you just to think about the state of education in the 21st century. You know, where we've got this overwhelming amount of information. And it's not really about what we know, it's about how we know it. And it's a personalised journey of education, personalised journey of exploration. And it's a social thing, is it not? And we've got these three really important pillars, I see, for education now, which is not about subject-led. It's about curiosity. It's about how we make choices. Enjoying yourself? And it's about relationships. And all this takes place in a social and a global context. So in many ways, that's what you're going through at the moment. You were rather intrigued by the fact I said we were going to share an intimate moment. You made the choice to take part in it. You've got some quite interesting relationships going on at the moment, I can see. And it's quite a social activity. Not only that, you've actually learnt a little bit about the basic building block of music, which is pulse. Now, if you'd like to carry on holding hands, I'm very happy with that, but if you want to drop, sit down, that's fine too. Now, music making, for me, is all about these core pillars of learning. Notice I said music making, not music listening. Music listening is a different activity. But music making, which involves creating music, it doesn't matter at what level, it means rehearsing it, it means practicing it, it means delivering it, it's a social activity. And this type of learning lies at the heart of what we call social constructivist theory, which kind of means, basically, that we learn best in groups. So wouldn't it be convenient if we could use music in a way that we could learn about other things as well? That would be great, wouldn't it? Well, I think you can. But in order to do that, you have to think about music differently. At the moment, we tend to think about music in terms of it being some sort of an elaborate decoration, really. And it's a way of thinking about music that came from the 18th century, when we started to think about music as being connected to emotion and to different sorts of sensibilities. And it's what the record industry uses all the time to sell as their commodity, basically. The outcome of that is, however, that we've become listeners and not people who participate in music making. So, if we turn it on its head, and we take this example from the visual arts, for example, where we teach people to draw, if we turn things over, we don't make assumptions about what the image is about. Now we start to look at it in terms of lines, patterns, and relationships. And I feel we need to do that with music too, because we tend to think of music as being a skill, people doing clever stuff with violins, or as a service. We listen to music, we go to concerts, we put it on at parties. But we never really think of music as a kind of a process. You know, what happens inside the music? What are the conversations that go on there? What are the nuts and bolts? And interestingly, these three people are not primarily known for being musicians. But they were all expert musicians, and two of them were self-taught. So if we think of music in this sort of analytical way, and we start to look at where it comes from, we find that actually the manipulation of sound, which is really what music is, has a very long history, and it probably dates back 2 million years when we were first trying to communicate with each other. The use of sound, and of course our hearing is the one sense which is always turned on, it never turns off. The use of sound was a way to actually warn us. It's like an early warning system. We could tell who was friend or foe. We could use sound to attract a mate. We could look at ways of establishing territory using sound. And we use sound a lot for locational information. If you've ever been into an anechoic chamber which sucks all sound information away from you, it's really very disturbing because no longer can you quite work out where you are. And the use of sound became very much a tool for establishing and reinforcing social relationships. We see this in every culture. Every culture has its own music, and it's different, and it's quite often associated with dance. We see it today when we look at the football terraces and all the football chants that go on. It's basically a tribal action that's taking place there. If we come up to date now with the discoveries in neuroscience, we find that music-making activities are like a gymnasium for the brain. And there's been interesting discoveries recently too about the impact of music on Alzheimer's sufferers. So it's a whole unexplored arena. If we go to the educational research around this, we find that music making can affect things like social and communication skills, particularly the development of language. We find that it helps with analytical skills, and critical skills, and also with creativity. Now that's exactly what we need in the global context, is it not? And certainly when we look at organisations such as IBM and McKinsey's, that's what they say they need in their workforce, and they can't get the people to fulfil those sorts of jobs. So my work has involved me in looking at things like DNA mutation and the spread of epidemics, and I did that by looking at Beethoven's Fifth Symphony and working with children in a very practical way. We've looked at things like the environment through Vivaldi's Four Seasons. I've worked with children with profound hearing loss who also have learning difficulties and challenging behaviours, and it's become a socialising influence. I've even worked with global hotel chains on brand management, brand repositioning and staff engagement programs, leadership programs for accountancy firms, global accountancy firms. And in Japan, I worked with one electrical manufacturing company. We looked at new product development, but this was using musical process. So when we have a conversation about music, we tend to focus on the emotional side of it. And you can see from these examples, it is difficult if we're just going to deal with emotions of music and not process. Because we all might like a piece of music, but the research shows that we think about it differently. So when we have somebody like Frank Zappa here, making a statement like this, talking about music is like dancing about architecture, it's a great statement, but actually he was a proficient musician, highly skilled, if somewhat idiosyncratic. But most people aren't that skilled. But everybody has musical ability, irrespective. You just have to find a way to encourage it. So I think that for music to be a proper educational tool which is valuable, we need to find different ways of engaging with it. Particularly people who are not necessarily associating themselves with music, and actually for holding a tambourine is even a traumatic experience, never mind playing it. So I think to engage with music in different ways, in these social contexts, will then start to put music at the core of our educational thinking, rather than having it sidelined to the edge, which it tends to be in most cultures for the moment. And what can you do? Why don't you just start singing and take part? Okay, thank you for your time. Thank you.